How's it going, laser bruises? I'm Bobby Sixkilla and welcome back to Shinrai Broken Beyond Despair. It is time to finally wrap this thing up. I'm pretty sure we are on the right path here. As long as I don't mess up any of these choices along the way. We just got to prove to Taiko that what we believe is the truth. And I think we're on our way to the true ending. Now, why didn't Rai's keys fit into the breaker room's lock? The only one that makes sense is that something was stuck in the lock. Katoba didn't have a key, and obviously nobody could have switched it out. We haven't got any fucking locksmiths here, so something was obviously stuck in the lock. What? Isn't that a little too simple again? So? Do all mysteries really need a really complex solution? I guess not, but does it really come that much as a surprise? I guess I can't talk today. I apologize. According to Runa, you faced the very same problem just recently. She told us about it when you examined the back exit in the dining hall. The other day when we were decorating the dining hall, Miyamoto-san somehow managed to break off a key when locking those doors. What? The blade's still stuck inside the lock. Of course, we tried to get it out, but we were unable to do so. So until a locksmith takes care of it, this lock will stay, well, locked. You gotta be kidding me. Oh, that's sad. We were going to have a cool bath time. Using a thin strand of wire or something similar should have sufficed. If you don't want to accept this explanation, we could just go take a look to confirm it. Nah, that's fine. Can't think of any other explanation anyways. But why do that in the first place? Wouldn't pushing the closet in front of the door have been enough? No. You had your keys with you. If you could have used them to lock and unlock the door, we would have immediately realized what's up. That it was only blocked. And then we would have tried breaking it down much sooner. Anywho, the lock's one of our lesser worries. We can take a closer look at that later. For now, let's move on. What comes next is a lot more important. Indeed. After realizing that we couldn't get into the breaker room, Bara-chan, Rai, and I had returned to the dining hall. There we had told the others about everything and conducted our little questioning round, which had eventually led to an argument. Frustrated about murder accusations, Runa had left for the restrooms in order to cool down a little. Bara-chan, Rai and I had followed her shortly afterwards. Originally, Rai had wanted to check on her friend, but had then decided to check on Hiro and Carmen first, which had resulted in the three of us witnessing that gruesome scene. Because of that costume, we assumed the person in front of us to be Carmen. However, according to you, it was Momoko in disguise. Momoko knew that sooner or later someone was going to check on Hiro and Carmen again. So wearing Carmen's costume, she waited there until the door would open, so she could stab Hiro right in front of our eyes, making us believe that Carmen did it. That's why Carmen isn't wearing her hat and cape now. Momoko asked you to give them to her, didn't she? Yes, but I would never have imagined she wanted them to frame me for murder. I'm still not convinced about that, but I guess it's time to clear this up once and for all. Who was the person you saw there? There's so much speaking out against it being Momoko that I don't even know which counter-argument to start with. For instance, he said that Momoko was waiting there for someone to open the door so she could kill Hiro in front of their eyes. However, I doubt he would have just let that happen. He's right. Who would calmly wait there lying on the floor with someone on top of them holding a knife? Exactly. Which leads us to a single conclusion. Hiro was never actually killed in front of our eyes. He was already dead before we arrived. What? Why so surprised? You were the one who noticed it first. Huh? I mean, sure, I didn't exactly check for a pulse or anything, but Carmen rammed that knife right into his throat. He definitely died on the spot. The poor guy couldn't even scream. Not only didn't he scream, he didn't move at all. As he said, it's weird to think he didn't try resisting and fighting for his life. Just like it's hard to imagine that he let himself get overpowered just like that in the first place, being physically much stronger. So the only conclusion one could derive from that is that he was already dead before you guys arrived. And in that case, it makes the whole thing we witnessed rather weird, doesn't it? Before we entered the guest room, Rai knocked at the door a couple of times. Don't you think the culprit would have been alarmed by that? I guess. Usually you would expect that if they didn't want to get caught, they'd immediately try to escape, especially if the victim was already dead. But despite Hiro being dead, they didn't try to escape upon hearing the knocking, nor did they the instant the door was open. Instead, they took their time to ram the knife into a dead body once more. Which begs the question, why do that and thereby create witnesses? Unless it was done on purpose in order to mislead them. Bingo. They wanted us to assume a false time of death, as well as that Carmen was the culprit. Yes, Momoko had carried a hidden knife with her the whole time. Since Hiro obviously hadn't suspected anything, it would have been easy to catch him off guard and stab him to death. After the deed was done, she then simply waited for someone to open the door in order to pretend to kill Hiro at that very moment. And thanks to the cape and hat, she could also make the onlookers believe that Carmen had done it. This also explained one other thing, which has seemed kind of random and almost pointless at first. If considering that Hiro had already been stabbed before our arrival, it started to make sense. Are you saying you can prove he was stabbed before? That he simply wasn't knocked out and therefore didn't fight back? Yes. Hiro's body? Yeah, aside from the gaping hole in his throat, there are numerous stab wounds scattered across Hiro's chest and stomach. As you might recall, Hiro was covered in countless stab wounds, but why would the culprit mutilate an already dead body like that? Doesn't that seem weird? Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any real point in doing that. But are you saying that sometime after we witnessed Hiro getting stabbed, the culprit went back and stabbed him some more? That's what I thought at first, but I think I got it wrong. Those additional stab wounds might have been already there when we witnessed the stabbing. What? But that's impossible. When the three of us saw Hiro's corpse, there weren't any additional stab wounds. Once again, you have to keep in mind that everything was dark. With Hiro's clothes being pitch black, noticing blood seeping through them would have been impossible. Moreover, back then his jacket had been buttoned up. However, when I found him again later, it was open, clearly letting me see his blood-drenched shirt. And now that I think about it, there weren't any signs of knife damage on his jacket, meaning that he wasn't stabbed through it, but with his jacket open. Yes, and since blood could be seen on the inside of it, the culprit must have buttoned it up after inflicting those additional wounds. So at first they wanted to hide those wounds for us, but later opened up his jacket to make us aware of them. But why? Because in doing so, they could make us believe that those wounds had been added much later. After all, they needed us to think that Hiro had died the very moment we'd opened that door. If we'd seen all those other stab wounds back then, it would have immediately been clear that the stab wounds to his throat hadn't killed him. I see. So first Hiro was stabbed multiple times until he was dead, and then he was stabbed one more time in front of you guys. If you'd actually witnessed the moment of his death, nothing would have been wrong with that. However, precisely because Hiro was already dead, that stab to the throat becomes strange. Indeed. Because again, why stab a dead body once more instead of escaping right away? The only reason for that could be that the culprit deliberately wanted to create witnesses. Man, it really looks like someone was trying to set up Carmen. I guess she really is innocent, isn't she? So does that mean Momoko... Not so fast. While I admit that it's getting harder to deny Carmen's innocence, nothing's set in stone yet. We still don't know where she's been during all that time. It's still possible the person you saw was her. Maybe she just got panicky when she heard you knock at the door, and that's why she didn't try to escape immediately. She didn't look panicky. He simply didn't want to give up on accusing Carmen, did he? Also, if Raiko-chan was right with all of this, it doesn't mean that Momoko was the only one who tried to frame Carmen. Huh? Who else could it have been? There's one other person who'd make a lot more sense than her. Oh no, I could already tell I wasn't going to like what was coming next. Runa. Me? You've been a suspect from the start, and you sure would have been able to do it. Taiko, what the hell? Don't start this again. Runa's innocent. There's no way she could have killed Hiro. She was in the restrooms while Raiko, Nobara, and I witnessed the stabbing, remember? But can we be sure about that? What? Runa left the dining hall before you guys, and as I understand it, you never confirmed if she actually went to the restrooms. I like that in this ending that we're going through, Taiko is basically doing the endings, the failed endings we did before this. You know how we ran through the failed ending where we blamed Hiro and where we blamed Runa? Now he's being us, doing those, running those same scenarios, while we're trying to disprove them, which is fascinating. You headed straight for the second floor. For all we know, Runa could have gone there herself, killed Hiro, and then disguised as Carmen, waited for you to arrive. You can't be serious. After letting you see her, she escaped through the window, hid in the thicket, and waited for Raiko-chan to run past you. Once she was gone, Runa simply climbed back up to the second floor. Kekai-san, what are you saying? Are you nuts? How the heck would she have even managed to do that? Climbing back up to the second floor is impossible. It's not. Right, Raiko-chan? Rai immediately darted a glare at me that was saying, you better not agree with him. Unfortunately for her, I had to. Climbing back up to the second floor had very well been possible. All the culprit needed to use was this. The rope. What? I used the rope to climb down, remember? And I'm pretty sure it should have been possible to use it to climb back up. Even if that's true, it doesn't mean Runa actually did so. What would make you even think I did such a thing? Is it merely because no one confirmed whether I went to the restrooms or not? No, it's not just that. If I recall correctly, Raiko-chan said that after jumping out of the window and meeting up with the others, they went back inside. In doing so, they came across you. Just as you returned from the second floor. What exactly were you doing up there? I thought you went to the restrooms. I did go to the restrooms. However, after hearing the commotion upstairs, I wanted to see what was going on. That is all. But it's strange, don't you think? After you came down from the second floor, the others went back up. The guest room was suddenly locked, wasn't it? Yeah, Rai and I definitely left the door open, and we ran downstairs to check on Raiko-chan. But when the three of us went back up, it was locked. So you're saying that was Runa's doing? That would appear to be the most obvious conclusion, wouldn't it? No. I swear I have nothing to do with that. I admit that it might seem suspicious that the door was locked after I returned from the second floor, but you have to believe me. I couldn't open it myself. It was already locked when I arrived there. Taiko, seriously, stop it. How many more times must I say it? Runa has nothing to do with all of this. It's just an unfortunate coincidence. I know you don't like to hear this, but I warned you before. I'm not going to leave anything to chance anymore. It is a possibility, and therefore we need to discuss it. It's a really bullshitty possibility, though. To be fair, I'd initially considered this possibility myself. At first glance, it seemed to make sense, but after giving it more thorough thought, there's no way Runa could have locked that guest room. After all, the door was never locked to begin with. Huh? What are you saying? It was. I unlocked it right in front of you, remember? No, the room you unlocked wasn't the same one where we found Hiro. That's why when you opened it, the corpse appeared to have suddenly vanished. Huh? All the guest rooms in this resort are more or less identical, aren't they? At the very least, that's what Runa told us when we first arrived. By the way, do all these rooms have like some super fancy theme to them? You know, like a room that looks like the interior of a submarine? Or maybe one that sports some wicked space design with stars and shit painted on one of the walls? Under the walls and ceiling? Unfortunately, no. While the rooms on the third floor are designed rather individually, it is not to such great extent. They merely differ in colour and furniture. As for the guest rooms on the first and second floor, they're more or less identical, I'm afraid. Well, yeah. The interior is exactly the same for each room, except for the minor details, like some of the decorations. So then, I really unlocked the wrong room? But that can't be. I'm sure it was the right one. After all, it had the... Yes, the only reason we thought it to be the correct room was this. The sign. We never paid that much attention to the room numbers due to the darkness and commotion. However, there was one thing we associated with that dreadful guest room. The Happy Halloween sign. Now, what do you think would happen if someone were to take that sign off and put it on the neighbouring door? And you're sure that's what happened? Yes. Before I investigated the guest room, I had made sure to verify the room number beneath that sign. Therefore, I know without a doubt that the room in which Hiro and Momoko died was 209. So it was room 209? Yes. But the room you unlocked was the one next to it, 211. Both rooms were in the centre of the corridor. Since there was no electricity, and the number plate was covered by that Halloween sign, we never got to see it. We only knew that the correct room had to be on the left side of the corridor, somewhere in the middle. So simply by putting the sign on a different door, the culprit managed to mislead us. So we really checked the wrong room, huh? But wait, you tried opening the other two doors left and right of it as well. Neither of them would open. So how can that be if 209 was never actually locked? First consider the following. All the guest rooms in this resort open inwards. Right? In other words, you need to push the door into the room. Yeah, so? With that in mind, it's not hard to figure out what prevented me from opening the door. That big freaking chest thing. Draw. There were traces on the tatami mats indicating that the drawer was pushed in front of the door. In other words, just like the breaker room, it was blocked from the inside. Ah, so that's why it didn't open. But what if we tried to unlock it? The keys most likely wouldn't have fit in the lock. So it's the exact same trick that was used in the basement. Guess that explains a lot. And it means that Runa ain't got nothing to do with that door. Indeed. With the door only opening inwards, she would have needed to trap herself in order to block it. Ergo, the fact that she came downstairs already proves that she didn't. But that's not everything. What do you mean? There's one more reason why Runa couldn't have been the one to disguise herself as Carmen and escape through the window. And coincidentally, it also proves that only Momoko can be the true culprit. What? Taika seemed kind of shocked, but I had to admit it, I was a little surprised too. I mean, I actually hadn't realized it myself until just now, but there was one piece of evidence that could prove both of these things at once. Alright then, I guess we've taken care of the major mysteries anyway. It's about time we put this whole discussion to rest. You've certainly shown that Momoko being the culprit is a legitimate possibility. However, so far, despite your promise in the beginning, you haven't provided any decisive proof of that. So this is your last chance. If you cannot prove it now, I'm afraid we will have to end this and leave the rest to the police. Shit. The atmosphere became more tense again, as everyone stared at me in anticipation. My last chance, huh? Well, I guess it was time to fulfill my promise then. I'd already proclaimed that there was one reason that should have further established Runa's innocence, as well as proven Momoko's guilt, and I had to do it the one thing both of them had in common tonight. If Runa truly had been the one to kill Hiro, then as natural consequence, she would also have been the one I chased outside. But that was impossible. And why exactly would that be? Because of her clothing, of course. What? Aku? What does Runa's clothing have to do with anything? Everything, actually. Yes, the clothing was the key to everything that had happened here tonight. Runa's wearing a kimono, which is rather restrictive of leg movement. Oh, she cut it. When she chased after Momoko and with Hiro and Carmen, she was unable to keep up with them and fell behind. The exact same thing happened when all of us ran to the basement to save Kotoba. Because of her kimono, she couldn't run as fast as the rest of us. Aku, that's right. Runa's a total slowpoke. Well, it's just as Shinpuku says. Walking at a brisk pace is not much of an issue, but I can never actually run in this outfit without falling on my nose. Which means there's no way you could have jumped out of that window and run away so fast. Wait a second, I admit that's true, however, Momoko is wearing the exact same kimono. So doesn't everything you just said apply to her? Yeah, by proving that Runa couldn't have escaped through the window, you've also proven that Momoko couldn't have either. In other words, you've just disproven your own theory. Maybe you should let me finish first, because I'm not done yet. What? As opposed to Runa, Momoko wouldn't have had any trouble running in her kimono. And I can show you why. Because she slit them down both legs so that it would open. Where's that? Momoko's body? Yeah, on the topic of damaged clothes, however, her kimono is actually cut open on both sides, vertically along the legs. The cuts are clean and were most likely done with a knife. I'm also pretty sure that her kimono didn't look like that. I noticed something peculiar when I examined Momoko's body. Her kimono was cut open vertically along the legs on both sides. The cuts were quite clean, so they were most likely done on purpose by using a knife or something similar. So she cut her kimono open in order to move her legs more freely. How else would you explain those cuts? Fair enough. However, the cuts themselves still don't prove that she killed Hiro. They prove that she wanted more leg movement, but who can tell for what? Also, I guess it would be possible that someone else inflicted them in order to mislead us. In any case, this cannot be deemed decisive evidence of her being a murderer. Why had I expected such an answer? Oh well, it didn't matter. I wasn't out of ammo yet. He probably wasn't going to give up until I could prove it beyond a doubt. Prove that Momoko had been the one sitting on Hiro and stabbing him to death while wearing Carmen's costume. And in that case, there was one more thing I could show him. Something I clearly showed that Momoko had been wearing Carmen's hat and cape. It was in the drawer in the chest. Because it's covered in blood? Try it. Carmen's hat and cape. I could use both of them as evidence, but I guess one of them should have sufficed. So which was it going to talk about? Which one of these two items contained more conclusive traces of her wearing it tonight? The cape, presumably, because that'd be covered in blood. The hat probably won't. My cape? Yes, it clearly proves that Momoko was wearing it while she stabbed Hiro. And how? There's some blood on it, which obviously got there when Hiro was stabbed, meaning that some of it must have gotten onto the culprit's actual clothes as well. However, do you see any blood on Carmen? No, but as you've said, the culprit was wearing the cape while committing the act, so... We're talking about a cape here, not a hazmat suit. There's no way it could have absorbed all the blood splatter. We talked about this before. Hiro's body was covered in countless stab wounds. His clothes were literally drenched in blood. The culprit stabbed him multiple times, creating quite the bloody mess. Do you honestly think a cape would have been able to catch all of that? Some of the blood definitely must have gotten onto the culprit's clothes. I'm afraid that doesn't seem to be the case, Shinpuku-san. If it really was as simple as spotting blood traces on someone's clothes, don't you think we would have identified the culprit long ago? Dude, she's covered in blood because of her costume. Funny that you, of all people, are mentioning that, Runa. Huh? What do you mean? Of course it wasn't that simple to notice blood traces on the culprit's clothes. Just take a look at yourself. There's blood all over the lower half of your kimono. But all of this blood is fake. That might be, but do you think it would be noticeable if some real blood got mixed into that? Sir's saying that Hiro's blood splatter onto the culprit, but we didn't notice because the culprit's clothes have been blood-stained to begin with? Exactly. I'm pretty sure that a scientific analysis would prove my theory to be correct. However, if you don't want to wait until the police are done with that, I can prove it to you right now. Oh my god. It was time for the final decisive piece of evidence that was going to resolve this once and for all. The undeniable proof that some of Hiro's blood had gotten onto Momoko when she'd stabbed him. It says at the bottom here there's something else bothering me about the body, but I can't quite put my finger on it. I considered that any real blood might have mixed in with the fake blood in her kimono, given the fact that it isn't damaged in the blood-covered areas. It doesn't seem like she was attacked there. Now we'll try it. I don't know what else to try. There's something else that struck me as odd when I examined Momoko's body earlier. I couldn't quite put a finger on it, but I finally know what it was. First of all, if you look closely, you'll notice that some of the bloodstains on her kimono appear to be cut off. Now this begs the question, why is there only half of a bloodstain? Because the other half is on the cape. Of course, you'd argue that the shape of the stains is merely coincidental. However, there's something that even you won't be able to deny. It might not be that obvious, but there's definitely more blood on her kimono now compared to earlier tonight. It's especially noticeable right below her chest. There are some stains that definitely hadn't been there before. You're right. Furthermore, as you know, Momoko was wearing a red rope around her body earlier. You can actually see traces of fake blood on it. The blood being on the rope means that she was already wearing it when the fake blood was applied to her costume, which means there shouldn't be any blood beneath the rope. But when we found her later, not only were there traces of blood on the exact line the rope had covered before, but also above it. Exactly. And I'm pretty sure they hadn't been there before, and were never supposed to be there either. You can tell just by looking at Runa's costume, or by comparing the bloodstains with the actual twin sisters from Twin Sisters Sacrifice. I never really got into that series, but I've seen so many adverts that even I can tell. There are no bloodstains above the red ropes, as Runa told us earlier tonight. Indeed, we tried to replicate the kimonos as accurately as possible. It proved to be rather frustrating at times, but I quite enjoyed sullying the fabric with all this blood. Shinpuku-san is right. We were very thorough, and while the bloodstains obviously aren't 100% identical to those in the show, we certainly paid attention to not commit any glaring mistakes. And since I was helping Mori-san apply the fake blood, I can definitely confirm that there shouldn't be any stains on or above the area covered by the rope. In other words, those additional stains are actually real blood. Real blood that must have gotten on there when Momoko stabbed Hiro. Yes, only 3 of us had worn blood-stained clothes from the very beginning. Rai, Momoko, and Runa. Some blood definitely had gotten onto the culprit when they mutilated Hiro's body. Since no one else but these 3 had blood on them, it had been suspiciously proven that neither Runa nor Rai could have been the one upstairs. They'd only left one person. Momoko. She is the true culprit. The choice of her costume alone should make this crystal clear. She was the one who proposed to Runa to dress up as the twin sisters, and she specifically did so because this outfit was literally perfect fit for her plan. The fake blood splatters to hide Hiro's real blood, the rope to climb out of the guest rooms and commit suicide with, and even the hair to pin everything on Carmen. Huh? The hair? What you talk about? One of the 2 sisters sports a hairstyle almost identical to Carmen's. It seemed odd to me that Momoko didn't ask her best friend to do the partner cosplay with her. especially since Carmen already looks the part. But now it makes sense, doesn't it? From the very beginning, she planned to disguise herself as Carmen. But her hair looked just like it always. Yeah, but it wasn't supposed to. Think back to what Runa and Momoko talked about when we arrived here. She forgot the wig. Actually, I bought 2 matching green wigs, but unfortunately forgot them at home. I cannot believe I was so careless. Once again, my deepest apologies, Mori-san. Oh, Runa, I told you it's fine. Stop worrying about that. It's no biggie, really. Even if you say that, I cannot help but feel quite ashamed of myself. After all, I was the one who claimed to know where to get the perfect wigs and promised to buy them. And then I forget them at home? Even after you reminded me just this morning not to? Oh right, I remember that. Momoko really had planned this through, huh? Yes. Unfortunately for her, Runa forgot the wigs. But I guess Momoko herself made some mistakes as well. Like hiding the cape and hat in the closet instead of burning them in the fire, for example. Nevertheless, she came up with quite an elaborate plan. In order to kill Hiro, Kotoba and herself, as well as blame everything on Carmen. As I said, just by looking at her costume, these facts should become clear. So do you see now? Or are there still more objections? I waited a few moments to give him enough time to answer, but he wouldn't say a word. Instead, he simply stared at me with a grim expression of his. I guess I could take that as a no. I closed my eyes, filled my lungs with air, and let out a deep sigh of relief. Considering how tenacious Taiko had been, and his unwillingness to accept my theory, I'd almost lost all hope that this moment would come. However, it looked as though he had nothing left to counter with. The others also seemed convinced now that what I told them was true. That Momoko really had been the mastermind behind all these terrible things. But if anyone still doubted me, we could simply have walked upstairs to compare the bloodstains on the cape and Momoko's body, and... Nah, that's fine. I don't think that's necessary. You win. I believe you. The others nodded in confirmation, letting me know they truly believed me as well. I guess it really was over then. Well, kinda. There were still some questions that remained unanswered, but I'd at least fulfilled my promise. I'd managed to convince everyone of Carmen's innocence. And for now, that was all that mattered. When I turned towards her, she let her big brown eyes roll back and forth between everyone surrounding her, almost as though to make sure she wasn't dreaming. She seemed quite perplexed by the reactions as she looked and looks she received from the others. They were the exact opposite from only a little while ago. This time her gaze wasn't met with hostility. There was no anger, disdain, or disgust. Instead, wherever she looked, there were only smiling, somewhat apologetic faces. See? I told you I convinced them, didn't I? Shinpuku. Even though it might be lost sometimes. Whether it be in a maze of lies or labyrinth of confusion, the truth will always find its way out. We just have to be a little patient and guide its way with careful thinking. That said, I'm sorry it took so long. And I'm sorry I didn't do anything sooner. I just wanted to be sure that my deductions were correct before committing a grave mistake. To be quite honest, I didn't even know all the answers from the start. I had to figure most of it out along the way, but despite that, you still decided to believe me. And to stand up for me. There's nothing you have to apologize for. I honestly don't care about the details. All I care about is that you decided to help me. And I'm really thankful for that. You have no idea how happy I am. How happy that you're finally back. There, she said it again. That I was back. But what exactly did she mean by that? Thank you. Thank you, Raika-chan. What? What was going on? Raika-chan? Had I heard that right? Did she really call me Raika-chan just now? She never called me by that name before. First Shinpuku and now Raika-chan? Just a short while ago, she was still referring to me as Grumpy. Having her call me Shinpuku had been weird enough already, but this? It felt so unnatural. Almost surreal. And to top it off, she was hugging me. Carmen, of all people, was hugging me. So hard it felt like she was trying to squeeze my innards into a mushy pulp. Thank you, Raika-chan. Thank you so much. Tears began to stream down her cheeks as her voice became a little shaky again. I really had no clue what was going on, but I guess that wasn't of relevance right now. All that was important was the fact that she was overcome with happiness and relief. This whole situation sure was strange. It honestly made me feel somewhat uncomfortable. Nevertheless, I tried slinging my arms around her too, pressing her tightly against me. Curses, I had no problems doing this with Bara-chan. Why did this feel so awkward? Never thought I'd witness the moment those two would be hugging each other. I guess even good things can come from tragedies, huh? And in this case, it seems to be the beginning of a new friendship. But let's hope that beginning of something doesn't something new doesn't mean the end of something old. Although I guess that's mostly up to us, isn't it? While Carmen and I continued holding each other, Taiko slowly moved over to us. He crouched behind her, put a hand on her shoulder, which finally caused Carmen to let go, and give me a chance to breathe again. Puzzled, she stared at him and tried to hold eye contact and release the words that were weighing so heavily on his heart and mind. Carmen? Yeah? I wanted to say that I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for everything I put you through. For not believing you, for yelling at you, for wrongly accusing you. I treated you, our friend, like a criminal, like a murderer, even though I didn't have any concrete evidence to back it up. I just based it all on assumptions. I can understand if you're mad at me. You have every right to be. What I did was unforgivable, so I didn't have the right to ask this of you. However, I don't want our friendship to come to an end like this, so... Would you please forgive me? Taiko. Guess I have to apologize too. I didn't want to believe you were the perp, but unlike Raika-chan, I didn't try to help you. I didn't have the courage to speak up against everyone else. I'm really sorry. Nabara. I'm also quite ashamed of myself. I demanded you tell us the truth. Yet that is exactly what you did the entire time. I should have believed you. I'm truly sorry, Aiga-san. Runa. Mika probably needs to apologize as well. Of course, Mika knew all along that Karma was innocent. Mika just wanted to see if Raika could figure it out on her own. Haku. Mika should have just shouted objection and cleared everything up right away. Oh, come on, Mika. Aku? I guess she's as bad at saying sorry as I am. Oh well. I never was really good with words, and the others already snatched away the best lines, so all I can give you is a simple sorry. But I'll have you know that it comes from the bottom of my heart. Right. Everyone. By now everyone had gathered behind Carmen and me. I moved aside to make room so that they could crouch down in a semicircle around her. One after the other they began hugging her, each of them apologizing one more time. Carmen seemed rather overwhelmed by this, and it became even harder for her to hold back her tears. But I had a feeling that she didn't mind too much. Carmen. I couldn't even begin to imagine how much she'd suffered tonight. Not only had she been betrayed by her best and only true friend, but she'd also lost her forever. And as if there hadn't been enough already, her classmates, her other friends, none of them had believed her. Instead they were ganging up on her, blaming her for crimes she'd never committed. I had no idea how that must have felt. However, I knew what it was like to lose the most important person in your life. And that feeling alone was devastatingly painful beyond all possible imagination. In any case, I continued watching how the others kept hugging Carmen, apologizing to her, as well as trying to console her. It was a rather heartwarming scene, to be honest. Eventually, though, she managed to calm down and everyone moved back to their places. When I took mine next to her again, she seemed a little flustered but gave me a shy smile, which I answered with one of my own. Once everyone had settled down again, Taiko cleared his throat in order to draw our attention. The police hadn't arrived yet, so it seemed as though we still had a bit more time, and apparently he didn't want it to go to waste. Carmen, if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask you some more questions. There are still a few things I don't quite understand, and I'd like to know the answers to them. But only if it's fine with you. Sure, go ahead. I don't mind. Thank you. Well, first of all, since you never really told us, where exactly have you been all this time? After the first blackout, you stayed with Hiro and Momoko on the second floor. However, at some point you must have gone somewhere else. We never saw you again until we heard you scream and found you in front of the guest room. Earlier you told us that you'd been hiding, but you refused to elaborate on that. So what exactly happened? Well, it's just as I said, I was hiding. Momo wanted me to. It was part of her plan. Part of her plan? Yes. You see, during that second blackout, once Raika-chan and the others were gone, Hiro, Momo and I were going to prepare our next move. Our plan was to make you believe that Momo's death had been the work of that ghost from Hiro's story. Wait, that horror story was part of the plan too? I figured as much. It couldn't have been mere coincidence. Yeah, we wanted to tell you guys a story that was similar to what would happen to Momo. The whole prank was basically about her getting possessed by a ghost and driven to commit suicide. She told us that would make it scarier. But if Mori-san knew about Shirataka-san's tale in advance, wouldn't that mean... Yeah, the argument between Momo and Hiro was staged. It was also part of our plan. Only Kotoba didn't know about it. Dang, it's not just you who's a good actress, huh? Hiro and Momo were too? That whole argument didn't feel fake at all. It might be because the two of them had a lot of practice. They actually argued like that all the time, even about the very same thing. Momo proposed to just reenact one of their usual arguments, saying that it would fit well with the story and make it feel more realistic. Wait, so they had a real argument as a fake argument? It's kind of messed up. Tell me about it. I didn't think that was a good idea either, but Hiro didn't seem particularly bothered by it. And I'm beginning to think that Momo knew it would only help her go through with their true intentions, so... In any case, as I was gonna say, she wanted to make you believe that Momo fell victim to the curse. Originally, she was supposed to go into hiding while Hiro and I would tell you that the body had suddenly disappeared. However, she told us that there was a slight change of plans. A change of plans? She said that she'd come up with an even better idea and asked me to lend her a cape, and he lent her my cape and hat. She wanted Hiro to tell the others that I'd been spirited away by a ghost, and that those two things had been all that remained of me. I obviously didn't suspect a thing and gave them to her. While she wanted Hiro to stay with her, she told me to go and hide and only return once she'd given me the signal. So that's what had happened. While Carmen had gone into hiding, Momoko and Hiro had remained in the guest room. At some point, she must have killed him, and then, knowing that sooner or later someone was going to check on them, she had simply waited, wearing Carmen's hat and cape. We already knew the rest from there. We saw her stab Hiro, and Raika-chan chased after her when she escaped through the window. She hid somewhere in the thicket and waited for Raika-chan to disappear and then climbed back up to the guest room. Next, she removed the Halloween sign and stuck it to the neighbouring door. That's how she misled us. While I unlocked the wrong room, she was barricading herself in the right one. The one with Hiro's corpse, which we thought had suddenly vanished. But why exactly did she do that anyway? She probably didn't want you to inspect the room and take a closer look at Hiro's body just yet. She wasn't quite done with her plan after all. Indeed. While Rai, Bara-chan and I had returned to the dining hall to tell the others everything, Momoko had most likely climbed out the window once more. After running to the other side of the building, she'd probably knocked at the break room window asking Kotoba to let her inside. Still thinking they were playing a prank on everyone and completely unaware of the fact that someone had actually died, he'd let her inside, of course. Knowing how much he had liked Momoko, it probably hadn't been hard for her to get him to drop his guard, if it had been up to begin with. Using a steel pipe, she knocked him out and tied him up. Then after spilling the gasoline across the floor, as well as some of the burnable objects she'd scattered about, she climbed outside the window again. From there, she used a match to light the gasoline trail, setting everything on fire. Including Kotoba. But why? I just don't get it. Why'd she do this to him? Why set him on fire? If she wanted to kill him, why not at least make it quick? She could have easily stabbed him like Hiro. But no, she purposely decided to set Kotoba on fire. Why? It could be any of these. You want to create a distraction? No, the fire wasn't really a distraction, because if everything had gone right, we would never have gotten in there, and we would never know about it, right? Wanted to burn the entire resort. Let's go with that. You think she wanted to go that far and kill us all? I don't know. I really didn't know either. I guess Momoko carried the answer to that to her grave. In any case, after starting the fire, Momoko had returned to the second guest room one more time. There she prepared Hiro's body, so that we would clearly see the wounds on his chest before getting everything ready for her suicide, which included attaching the rope to the ceiling again and tying it into a noose. Before she'd actually hanged herself, however, there had been one other thing to do. In order to fully cement Carmen as the culprit, she had needed to call her back. And I think I know how she did that, and also where exactly you've been hiding. Huh? You do? The intercom. She was in that third floor place. Intercom. The room service on third floor. When I went to check it earlier, I realized the door was open. I bet Momoko asked Hiro to unlock it as well. That's right, but how did you know? Momoko might have been wearing Hiro's gloves so as to not leave any fingerprints, but while she stabbed him over and over, his blood got onto them. As a result, she smeared some of it on the intercom when she used it to contact you. You don't miss anything, do you? So once you turned the power back on, Momoko used the intercom to call Carmen, huh? Yeah. And while Carmen was on her way to the guest room, Momoko hanged herself. When Carmen discovered her, she let out a scream, and then we rushed upstairs where we found her in front of the guest room. And because she'd been missing all that time, we naturally assumed she's the only one who could be behind the fire. So that's how everything went down. And even if you told us all that from the beginning, no one would have believed you. Well, not like I could blame you for that. I wouldn't have believed me either. To think Momoko really did all this. That she came up with such a vicious plan. Why? Just why would she do all this? Yes, that was the last big remaining question. maybe even the most important one of all. Momoko's motive. What could possibly driven such a cute and shy girl like that to such an extreme act? Not only had she wanted to kill 2 of her classmates, one of them even her lover, she'd also tried to blame everything on her best friend. It seemed like quite the paradox. Why do this to the people most important to her? I want to know too. Especially why she did this to Katoba. What exactly did he do to her to deserve something like this? Little by little, 6 pairs of eyes were drawn to Carmen. If there was anyone that was able to shed light on this, it was now her. Unfortunately, she remained silent, and purposely avoided eye contact by staring at the table surface instead. We couldn't force her to answer, of course, and we didn't want to either. Not after what we'd already done to her. Besides, maybe she didn't even know the answer herself. Still, we couldn't hide our frustration over it, especially Taiko. Just as he let out a deep, disheartened sigh, however. I can't be absolutely sure, of course, but I think I know her reasons. You probably want to hear about Katoba first, right? So I guess I'll start with him. Please do. Like most people in our class, Momo never really liked Katoba because of his perverted nature. Apparently he liked her a lot though. And he tried to show that to her whenever he could. Even before she got so popular after that concert, Katoba slipped her love letters on a regular basis. He was really persistent and kept asking her out again and again, but she'd always turn him down. As nicely as possible, of course. I'm sorry, not today, maybe some other time. I believe it was a mistake giving him hope like that, but she didn't want to be mean. It's just the kind of person she was. I tried to make it clear to him, but she didn't. And so he kept coming back. Eventually, she started to ignore his letters, throwing them away without even reading them. When he realized this, he tried other things to gain her attention. Lots of weird things. In order to find out what she liked, he would follow her in secret, sometimes even for an entire day. I knew that he was kind of obsessed with Momoko, but I had no idea he was stalking her. Well, he was. And it scared her. What do you imagine a girl like her would think, when she's being stalked by a perverted guy like that, who never manages to keep his dirty fantasies to himself? Hey, he might have been a pervert, but he never would have gone that far. Even if that's true, how is she supposed to know? Why'd you never tell me about this? I could have talked him out of it. She was too shy to go to you. I was considering it though. I even threatened him I'd notify the police if he kept it up, and I guess it worked. He stopped. Not entirely. She'd still find love letters or apology letters every now and then, but it definitely got a lot better. Especially after she got together with Hiro. Yeah, he kinda gave up on her after that. Anywho, so that's the reason she wanted to kill him? Because she was scared of him. At the very least, it probably made the decision easier. To be honest, I don't think she originally wanted to kill him. Her main target was Hiro. But I guess once she realized that she needed someone else's help, that changed. She picked Katoba because he was easy to manipulate, and of course after that, she had no choice but to kill him too. At least if she wanted everyone to believe that I was the culprit. I guess that would make sense. We didn't believe you, but if there'd been someone else to confirm your story, well... yes, because of that she had to kill him. And even though she hadn't planned to in the beginning, I don't think it really bothered her that much due to the things that he'd done to her. It looked like Taiko wanted to speak up in Katoba's defense again, but he reluctantly swallowed his words, realizing there wasn't anything to justify about his friend's actions. Probably wasn't easy for him to learn these things about Katoba. All he could do was apologize that he hadn't noticed how much his best friend must have scared Momoko, and that he hadn't been able to do anything about it. It's okay. It's not your fault. And not really Katoba's either. Like I said, if it hadn't been for Hiro, Momo would never have killed anyone, I'm sure. So she only did this because of Hiro? But why? I thought she loved him. We already learned that they argued a lot and weren't exactly the happiest couple, even though they sure like to pretend otherwise. Or at least Hiro did. However, was it really so bad she wanted to kill him? You have no idea how bad it was. It's true. Momo and Hiro had a lot of arguments. She easily got jealous over the smallest things, which greatly annoyed him. They often argued about that, but of course, there was no reason for her to kill him. So there was something else? A couple of things, actually. First and foremost, the fact that he didn't even love her. Wait, what? He didn't? But why did he want to have her as a girlfriend then? Simple. Too simple, actually. You see, like most guys, Hiro didn't pay much attention to Momo at first. That only changed after she managed to build up the courage to take part in that concert. That's no surprise though, is it? Momoko never was a girl that stood out much, so she kind of went unnoticed until her performance during the cultural festival. It certainly was true. Momoko hadn't been that different from me in many regards. She'd always been an introvert, shy, quiet, barely talking to anyone but her best friend. That's why after the concert, she'd become the talk of our class. Everyone had been so surprised, since they hadn't thought her capable of performing on stage in front of a huge crowd. Because of that, she'd gotten a lot more attention to the point that you could even hear students from other classes talking about her in the hallways. With that, more and more guys had started to show interest in her as well. And then one morning, Hiro suddenly proclaimed their relationship in front of the entire class. Yes, but did you never think of it as strange? I mean, you know what kind of guy he was. A show-off who enjoyed being in the spotlight. Wait, are you saying that's the reason he wanted to be together with her? Yes, because she was so popular. Because everyone was talking about her. And because everyone envied him for getting together with her. Seriously? I could never stand that guy's attitude, but to think that he would go that far just to get attention. Wow, just wow. How the heck did she fall for him anyway? That's something I never understood. Well, I have to admit that Hiro knew how to make a girl feel special. He could be really charming when he wanted to. But the thing is, it was all just an act. He might have treated you like you were the most precious being on earth, but he didn't actually mean it. Like with everything else, all he really cared about when it came to a girl was if she could be of use to him. If she could help him bathe in the spotlight. That cannot be true. Shirataki-san was not like that. He was a really nice and kind person. He wasn't that selfish. He would have never. You're only saying that because you didn't really know him. You let yourself get blinded by him, like Momo did. He wasn't a nice guy at all, and you know that. Don't delude yourself, Runa. He ditched you in a heartbeat and didn't even tell you why. You must have been wondering why he suddenly ignored you like that, right? Want me to tell you the reason? As well as the reason why he wanted to go out with you in the first place? Runa seemed torn, like part of her wanted to know, but another was scared of the answer. In the end, however, she just had to know the truth, so she gave Carmen a silent nod. There are a lot of people who think your family is super rich, right? Since the beginning of the school year, rumors to that effect were going through class, and for a while, everyone was talking about it, especially after summer vacation. And that's exactly when he started to show interest in you, didn't he? What? So the only reason he asked her out was because it drew attention to him as well, and because he sure would have liked to have a rich girlfriend. But then he went to visit you at home one day, right? And that's when he learned those rumors weren't true. And the next day he ignored you. Did the timing of it all never strike you as odd? To be honest, I always suspected as much, but I didn't want to believe it. He was the first person to ever tell me that they loved me. And he treated me so nicely for the short time we went out together. I didn't want to believe that it had been all an act. Runa. No one said a word as Runa wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her kimono. They all seemed quite shocked at this revelation, but honestly, it didn't surprise me one bit. Hiro had always loved being the center of attention, presenting himself as someone enviable. Many had hated him for that attitude, including myself. I could certainly see him as the kind of guy who saw a girl as nothing more than an object of prestige he could show off to make others jealous. At least that's the way it had always come across whenever he talked about Momoko, or showed himself in front of others. So he just wanted Momo and Runa to be his girlfriend to brag about him. That really all? Yes, it's all he cared about. He never really loved Runa, and he certainly never loved Momo either. How can Carmen be so sure of that, Aku? Just because Hiro liked showing off on Momo doesn't necessarily mean Hiro didn't love Momoko. Maybe Hiro actually did love her, Aku. No, he didn't. He didn't love her at all. I know that because barely 2 weeks after they got together with her, he was already hitting on another girl. What? For real? Yeah, and he tried to feed her the same bullshit. That he truly loved her and wanted to be together with her. And it's you, isn't it, Carmen? That she was the most beautiful and talented girl he'd ever met. And that's why she wanted to frame you. That fucking asshole. The same thing he told Momo. He said the very same crap to me. He was hitting on you? Yeah, can you believe the nerve of that guy? Just after he got together with my best friend. Of course, I didn't buy any of his shit. I would have waited wouldn't have wanted to be together with him anyway. Could never stand that guy. I hated arrogant show-offs, and cheaters even more. Naturally, I confronted him about it, and told him just that, but he didn't seem to care. He just went on and on about how much he loved me, so I asked him,